Hi everyone, beautiful evening to every listener out there. Sorry we are starting a bit late today. How are you doing? Welcome to Life Essential Talk, your favorite talk show where we talk about crucial things of life. I remain Uche Chukwuma, your host. My co-host Clare Ohunayo is not available today. Okay, on Monday, the 13th of June, they had a powerful discussion on empowering women through skill acquisition. I know you got something basic. I know you got something basic from that topic. Well, today's show has another good topic, which is genotype and blood group compatibility in marriage. We have a medical doctor as a guest today, and he will tell us all we need to know. Meanwhile, let's take a break now to continue in a few minutes. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to Life Essential Talk on Radio Maria, the voice of truth. It's time to welcome our very special guests. But before we do that, let's welcome my co-host. She's now available. She's late, just like I was. Claire, it's good to see you. It's good to have you here.
Thank you very much. Good to be here. I'm sorry, listeners.
Please forgive us. All right, so it's time to welcome our very special guest, Dr. Jude Olumese. Dr. Jude is a medical doctor. He works at Federal Medical Center here at Abuja. Dr. Jude, is so good to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, so today he will tell us all we need to know about genotype and blood group, as well as their effect on marriage. Dr. Jude, we are now down to business of the day. What is genotype?
Genotype could be described as the genetic makeup of an individual.
Okay.
So when we talk about genotype, we're talking about the genetic makeup of an individual. Every individual is made up of cells. These cells have special structures in them that are called chromosomes. These chromosomes carry genes.
Okay.
The genes are actually the information releasing center for the organism. So everything that the organism tends to become, or the entire makeup of the organism, it's actually based on information that is carried in these genes and then transferred or transmitted to the organism and to all the formative processes that make up the organism. So when we talk about genotype, we're talking about the genetic makeup of the individual. That's the things in the cells of the human being that makes that person what he is.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Okay, thank you so much. So genotype is a genetic makeup of an individual. What makes him or her who he or she is.
yes.
All right, so what about blood group?
Okay, blood group would I could describe blood group as the group or the type of the blood or the type of the blood an individual has. Now, in an individual is made up of blood cells. Now we have three major blood cells: the red blood cells, the white blood cells, and the platelets. These are the major cells that are in the blood that runs through the individual's vessels. Now, with particular reference to blood grouping, we'll be talking about the red blood cells. So now, on the red blood cells are certain substances. We need to try to be as layman as possible while we speak, so that some of our listeners who
People
are
like
not
us, we understand.
So there are some molecules on the red blood cells. These molecules are actually what makes up the blood group of the individual. Okay, like the most common ones which we use here are the ABO blood groups.
Okay, ABO.
Yes.
Okay, they are
ABO.
ABO. Okay.
Yes,
okay.
that's like alphabet A, alphabet
Alphabet
B,
B, and
alphabet
O.
O. Yes. So it is on these red blood cells, they have these molecules are actually called antigens. Yeah, they are called antigens. So every red blood cells who express or which expresses antigens A would be described, and anybody having this kind of red blood cells will be described as someone who has blood group A. So anyone who has antigen B on their red blood cells would be described as someone who has blood group B. And then anyone who has O antigen on their red blood cells will be described as someone who has blood group O. Now, apart from this ABO blood grouping system, there is another blood grouping system which is called the rhesus factor or the rhesus system. And that is where we get to describe or classify subjects or individuals into rhesus positive or rhesus negative. So a combination of the ABO blood group and the rhesus group system is what makes up the blood group. And that is why when you go to do a blood test, it could come out as, oh, she is A positive,
Okay.
she is B positive, A negative, and all that. So that is the combination of the ABO and the rhesus blood grouping system.
All right. So,
Dr. Jude, sorry, before you go on, you described genotype as the
Yes.
genetic makeup.
Yes.
Please break down that genetic makeup that you said
Okay.
so that we can all follow.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I think I tried to break it down initially. When we talk about genetic makeup, we're talking about genes. Genes actually are the information carrying system in an individual. For example, during the period of formation of the human being, embryogenesis, the period of embryogenesis, the period of organogenesis, while a human being is being formed in the womb. Now, the formation of the human being, of the head, of the leg, of every part of the body, doesn't just take place like that. There are certain information that are transmitted into the formative system of the individual that makes the individual, oh, it's time now to organize the liver and form the liver. There's an information for it. So those informations are actually carried in the genes. And these genes are located in the chromosomes. So when we talk about genotype, I know most times we talk about genotype, we want to hear such things as AS, SS.
that's what I've been waiting to hear.
Well, now, when we talk about AS, SS, and all of that, we're actually talking about the hemoglobin genotype. That is what genes or how genes get the red blood cells to form, or how genes get hemoglobin to form, you understand? To form a particular type of hemoglobin. Now, there are different kinds of hemoglobin. When we say hemoglobin, this is quite difficult, but let's try to see how we're going to make it. Now, hemoglobin is a very important component of the red blood cells. Now, we understand that the red blood cells carries oxygen, takes away carbon dioxide, and is responsible for delivery of oxygen and vital stuff to the tissues and the cells of the body. Now, how does the red blood cell carry oxygen? The red blood cells carry oxygen with the help of a structure or a substance, a molecule called hemoglobin. Now, this hemoglobin, there's a way it is formed. Now, it could be normal, it could be abnormal. Now, for hemoglobin to be normal, the genes responsible for the formation of the hemoglobin has to give information. I don't know if we are together. Have to give information to the centers responsible for formation of the hemoglobin. Now, if the gene gives information to form hemoglobin S, it forms hemoglobin S. Okay. If it gives information to form hemoglobin A, it forms hemoglobin A. So this is what we talk about this is basically what we talk about when we're talking about hemoglobin genotype. For example, when we talk about blood group,
yes,
even genotypes too, the ABO blood group that we've just talked about.
okay,
For an organism to have either A, B, or O, there is a plate, or there's the genotype itself. The genotype of that blood group has to also has a role to play. I don't know whether we're getting it. Okay, so that we don't confuse our neighbor, I think let's restrict our discussion to hemoglobin S and hemoglobin
yes,
A.
please.
All right, thank you so much. So now for this we have hemoglobin A. Usually there are two, the hemoglobin has chains, usually made up of two chains, globin chains. Now, these globin chains can either be hemoglobin A, hemoglobin A or hemoglobin S.
Okay.
It could also be hemoglobin C. It could also be hemoglobin, thalassemia hemoglobin, beta thalassemia hemoglobin.
Okay.
Yes. So now, when you have a combination of hemoglobin S and hemoglobin S, then that's called SS genotype. Hemoglobin SS genotype.
All right.
Yes. So when you have combination of hemoglobin A and hemoglobin S, that is hemoglobin AS genotype.
Okay.
Now, when you have a combination of hemoglobin A, that is hemoglobin AA genotype. I don't know if we are now
Yes.
flowing. Now, when you have a combination of hemoglobin S and hemoglobin C, that's hemoglobin SC genotype.
Mm.
Yes.
I'm just hearing this for the first time. Have you
Oh.
heard of it?
I have, but I don't know
Is
much
it rare?
about it.
Is it rare?
Well, it is rare.
Okay.
No, we won't say it is rare, but it is not as common as the others.
AS,
Yes.
SS, okay.
Yes. Now, the normal hemoglobin genotype, or the normal hemoglobin, is hemoglobin A.
Okay.
That's the normal hemoglobin A. So, and that's why when people have a combination of AA, and we say their hemoglobin AA, or their genotype is AA, that's the normal. Now, when you have S is not normal. It's not normal in that in the formation of the hemoglobin, there has been an alteration of the subunits of the hemoglobin. You know, amino acids, they make up the subunits of the hemoglobin. So there's an alteration in the structure, and that's what makes it abnormal. So in certain conditions, you see those who have hemoglobin S, I think they have kind of linked it up to or related it to that hemoglobin is able to form sickle shapes. I believe you know what a sickle is. Sickle shape when the individual is exposed to some adverse conditions. So we call that as hemoglobin. So the C is also another variant. The beta thalassemia is also another variant, of which you have the beta thalassemia O and thalassemia O and thalassemia plus. So these are some of the real common types of genotypes that we could say we have. there are others, others actually.
Okay. So when you have AS, the
Yes.
A is normal, right?
Yes, it's normal.
So it makes the S normal. That's
No,
why I don't
of course.
understand. Can it?
It's
Okay.
it's like a normal and an abnormal.
Okay.
Yes. So it's like maybe let's say a man whose limbs are good and is walking, probably married to someone who's crippled.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Please, I have a question. Dr. Jude, you mentioned that the genes give information
Yes.
for the formation of the blood cells.
Yes.
Now, is it random?
Well,
Is
it
the
is.
information random or
It is not random.
okay?
It is actually a programmed process. Yes, it's actually a programmed process. But it's just that, in the course of the program process, somehow things could go wrong. Things could go wrong. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So let's take a break now to continue in a few minutes. Don't go anywhere. Dear listeners, welcome back to Life Essential Talk on Radio Maria, the voice of truth. We are still talking about genotype and blood group with Dr. Jude Olumese, a medical doctor. So, Dr. Jude, you have told us a whole lot about genotype and blood group. So let's get it down to this. Why is it important to know your genotype, now the hemoglobin genotype and blood group, before marriage?
Oh, thank you. It's very important to know these things before marriage, because depending on which you have or the individual in question has, it could actually affect the offspring. For example, if two people or a couple are going to get married and they both have AS, hemoglobin genotype, there's a likelihood that they are going to give birth to offspring who have completely abnormal hemoglobin genotype with SS, and that carries a lot of problems with it. Of course, that will result in the delivery of someone whom we know in our late term as a sickler. And for people who have that kind of condition, they take their parents in and out of hospital all the time. And then the burden, for economic burden will be quite much on the patient, on the couple, as well as the emotional problems too, because sometimes they will eventually get to a point that they start feeling guilty that, oh, they are responsible for the child's predicament. So it is very important for a couple who are intending to get married to sort out these things before they get married, in a bid to avoid unpalatable consequences in future.
Okay, so any other important?
Sorry, I'd
Okay.
like to ask a question here. Does this genotype apply only to those of us that are dark-skinned? What of the Caucasians?
Well, yes, every race have their own genotypes. Yes, but when we talk about the hemoglobin genotype, the AS, the SS thing, yes, for those of us who are of African descent, we usually tend to have more of the AS. We have, when you talk about the predominance of the AS hemoglobin genotype in the world, those of us who are in Africa, especially those of us who are in malaria-prone areas, have that tendency to develop the AS hemoglobin genotype. Why? Because it has been found that the S genotype itself has some protective mechanism against malaria.
Okay.
Yes. So because of its ability to sickle, it therefore It therefore prevents malaria parasites from surviving within the red blood cells itself. So it's a kind of protective mechanism for us in this part of the world. But of course, in its quest to protect us, eventually comes up with its own consequences.
Wow. No wonder I'm very strong.
Are you trying to say something on radio? All right. Okay, so if I should put it this way, which genotype should marry?
Oh, well, I think this is quite difficult to answer.
Okay. Why? Why is it so?
Well, because we actually are not in a position to tell people how to marry, who to get married to.
Okay.
Yes, but if we want to sit on maybe or stay on the stand of giving advice or counsel, or we may want to ask people to get their genotype done before they get married, and then if a couple notice that they both have AS, we can only tell them this will not be so good for you. There is every likelihood, a high percentage, or there's a high risk of them eventually having SS of offsprings.
Okay.
But for those who have AA, they don't have issues. They can go ahead and get married. For of course, AA will eventually, whatever be the number of offsprings they will have, they are definitely going to be all AA hemoglobin genotype. But when we have people who have AS, of course, when they get married, they will eventually have some offspring that will carry the same abnormal genotype.
Okay, what if AA marries AS? Can they
Well,
have AA?
If AA marries AS,
yes.
they will have, they are likely to have AA, they are likely to have AS, but they won't have SS. Yes, they'll have AS, which is the trait, the sickle cell trait. That's what they call the sickle cell trait, because it has one of the abnormal hemoglobin. But it's just that maybe in future we're having more AS. So eventually, if we advise them to get married, or if they have to get married, they'll get AS. The pool of AS begins to, widen among the population or increase among the population, and eventually AS gets to marry AS, and then we're still having more SS.
Interesting.
Really interesting. So if AS marries AS, is it not possible for them to get, don't mind the question anyways, coming from someone that has no, how will I put it now? I'm not into science. But if AS marries AS, is it possible for them to have normal children, that's AA now, to have children with AA genotype?
Very possible.
Okay, it's possible.
Yes, it is possible.
Okay.
Very
Can they
possible.
also have AS?
Yes, they can have if AS gets married to AS,
Okay.
they can have AA, they can have AS, and they can have SS. Yes.
Okay. All right, dear listeners, you have heard it all. The phone line is open now. Please call us on 081 084 47518. Again, 081 084 47518. You can send SMS, you can send your message via WhatsApp. We are hoping to hear from you. All right, Dr. Jude, for those already married with incompatible genotype, and I don't think we said, what about the blood group? What role does the blood group play, when it comes to this AAAS, before we go into those already married?
Well, the blood group, like we said, we have the ABO and the rest of blood groups. For those who have rhesus negative, for mothers who are rhesus negative and giving birth to rhesus positive children, maybe they have inherited, children have inherited this rhesus positive from their father. So there's a tendency of the mother, because these things are about, they are about antigens, antibody reactions.
All right, sorry, Dr. Jude, to cut in. There's a caller on the line. Hello. Good evening. Good evening. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Please, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Oh, okay.
Please, can I hear you?
I am Faith.
Okay, Faith, please, where are you calling from?
Calling from.
Okay, Faith from Buhari. Let's hear you.
Please, I have a question to ask.
All right.
What if a woman is AA and gets married to a man with AB? Is he good?
Okay. Dr. Jude, did you hear that? AA,
Yes.
when someone with AA gets married to I think AS.
AC. She said
AC, all right, AC.
AB.
Okay, AB, all right, AB.
Well, I think that's not quite, that doesn't quite follow.
Okay, there's nothing like AB.
Yeah, we didn't say anything. We didn't, when we're talking about hemoglobin genotype, we didn't talk about AB.
AB, all right, please hold on to your thought. There's another call on the line. Hello. Hello, good evening. Please turn down the volume of your radio. Hello. Hello, please.
Okay, Mr. Leo calling from Abuja. Good evening.
Okay, Mr. Leo, nice to have you here. Okay.
Please, for the benefit of the layman, I don't know if I joined you late. Can
No,
I
it's
hear
okay.
something about this A positive, O negative, O positive, something, please?
Okay, we have been on it. Dr. G, maybe you just have to summarize it quickly for him.
Okay.
Fine, let me do.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, let's take it like this.
Okay.
Hope I have a little time. We have, for every blood group, they have, let's put it like, they have soldiers that fight against offending agents. So if I have blood group A, that means I have soldiers that will fight against blood group B, blood group O, and blood group AB, as the case may be. Now, if I have blood group B, that means I have soldiers that will fight against blood group A, blood group AB, and blood group O. So now, I think it's just AB. If I have O, if I'm blood group O, I have soldiers that fight against blood group A, blood group B, and blood group AB. So that means if I have blood group A, I have no business with any other blood group apart from maybe blood group O, because I can receive blood group O because blood group O doesn't have anything that will fight against me. I don't know whether I'm flowing.
Continue.
All right. So blood group A, B, O, and AB, these are the major blood groups that we have. Then when you now add positive and negative to them, it means if I'm A positive, it means I have blood group A and I have rhesus factor positive. Now let me use a woman and her child. Now a woman who is rhesus positive, who is rhesus negative, will have antigens against, or will have soldiers that will fight against rhesus negative blood. So if the child, rhesus positive blood, so if the child is rhesus positive, therefore that means the woman who is rhesus negative tries to, maybe she doesn't want to have anything to do with rhesus positive. So she sends soldiers from her blood to the child's blood to fight against the child's blood. And that is why for women who are rhesus negative, and their husbands are rhesus positive, there's every likelihood that their child will be rhesus positive. So in a bid to avoid this kind of war that may eventually have deleterious effect on the child, certain medications are given to the woman at certain points in her pregnancy. Now, this doesn't happen mostly with the first pregnancy. It happens with progressive pregnancies because it takes the woman to be sensitized first. Because when the woman carries her first pregnancy and the child is rhesus positive, she is rhesus negative, definitely the cells of this woman's cells begins to see that rhesus negative, sees rhesus positive as an enemy and begins to build arsenals. You understand? Begins to build arsenals against rhesus positive. So when rhesus positive comes another time, because the first arsenal she built is not enough, so it may not be able to create as much problem as subsequent pregnancies. So in subsequent pregnancies, this woman has been able to build up more arsenals. So when the woman has the second pregnancy, there's a tendency for her blood to react with the child's blood, thereby breaking down this child's blood, resulting in jaundice. And then if the child's blood is broken down, the child is trying to bring or to manufacture more blood from the red blood cells manufacturing industries that he has inside, thereby working them and making them to work too hard, and eventually many of them and that's resulting in what we know as some things what's called erythroblastosis fetalis, where the child is born with jaundice and the child swells and eventually the child doesn't survive. So that's what we call rhesus hemolytic disease of the newborn. That is rhesus incompatibility.
Okay, and you also advised that AA can go along with AA. That someone with AA can marry someone else with AA. AA can also marry AS. But
Yes.
not advisable for AS to go along with AS.
Yes, AS can actually go along with AS. Now, but the thing is that for AS, for every 4 children they have, there's a tendency that one of them will eventually be SS. I don't know whether
Yes.
for every 4 children, if AS gets married to AS, for every 4 children they have, there's a tendency that one of them will become SS. Now, they will eventually give birth to AA, they will also give birth to SS. So for every 4 children, there's a 25% for AA, 25% for AS, 25% for SS, and also another 25% for AS. So for every one of them. So the thing is that it doesn't just follow. It doesn't mean that I must have to give birth to 4 children before I get an SS.
Okay.
So every 4 of those children, there's a possibility that they can even be SS.
Okay, and the first child can be SS.
Yes, the first child can be SS.
SS.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And someone says something about AB.
Well, AB.
AA marrying AB.
Well, it depends now on the context. Are we talking of AA? Okay, AA, that in terms of the blood group. Fine, AA and AB can get married, yes. Now, when we talk about this ABO ABO reactions between mother and child, I think it goes like this. When a child is born or when the child is in the womb, the expression of this blood group, I mean ABO blood group, is not as strong as that of the rhesus blood group. You know, when we started, we talked about 2 kinds of blood group system that now result in being A positive, B positive, and all of that. We talked about the ABO system and we talked about the rhesus system.
Okay.
Now, for newborn children, what they express strongly is the rhesus system, not the ABO system.
Okay.
Yes, you know why? Because the ABO system actually results from
Okay.
exposure.
All right, please just hold on to that. We'll get back to that. We have a caller. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Ezekiel. I'm calling from Uche.
Okay, Ezekiel, nice to have you here again.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm really enjoying your program.
Okay.
My regard to your guest, Dr. Olumese.
Thank
I
you.
have two questions.
All right.
Yeah, I'm speaking as a layman because I don't have much knowledge about hemoglobin. Romosis.
I know
Just
this voice.
continue with your question.
So, my question is this.
Okay.
Is there any recent technology? Because I heard a couple who once say that there's a recent technology that when a woman takes in, there is a check that will be carried out to know whether the child is going to be an SS or AS. At that 80 tender age of the baby, probably the pregnancy is just a month or even less than a month. So that it's possible to carry out a test like that. From the church perspective, they will say it is wrong for you to go for abortion. But others really they don't believe in that. You can, in other countries of the world, abortion is legalized. So is it possible, is there any technology like that to dictate, to know that, oh, this child is going to be an SS, so that if they want to terminate the pregnancy, they can go ahead and terminate. That's my first question. My second question is this. I heard him talk about a woman having her first 2 or 3 children without having the child being none of the children being an SS. Is that still possible? Because you have seen couples who are both AS having their first 3 or even 4 children, none of them being SS. Then you have some couples, their first child will be an SS, will be a carrier. So is it possible for you to know? Is there some tests that need to be run that one will know even before you get into that marriage to know that this woman does not have that capacity, or the couple, both of them do not have that capacity to bear children that will have heirs? At least the first 2 or 3 to have heirs. I don't know whether you people understand my question, especially the second question.
Yes, it's understood.
Okay.
Thank you, Ezekiel. All right, so Dr. Jude. Okay.
Okay, thank you for that question. But I would like to, yes, it's true. There are investigations that can be done to determine the child's hemoglobin genotype very early in pregnancy. There are investigations, some like the chorionic villus sampling, as well as the amniocentesis. These are some investigations that can be done to confirm what genotype the baby growing in the womb is carrying. But we know that from the, just like you said, from the, when they know, what do they do? What next? What next? Usually some people may want to, okay, let's terminate the pregnancy. But we understand that, just like you said, from the church perspective, and also even from the Nigerian perspective, even in Nigeria here,
Yes.
we know that abortion itself, it's a crime,
It is.
for irrespective of the whatever the reasons for it. So I think here that kind of test will have a limited value, because at the end of the day, they may eventually not get a place to terminate that pregnancy, or it may just also give them the information of what lies ahead, and makes them help them to prepare
Get
their
prepared,
mind. Yes.
yes.
Then secondly, concerning the other question you asked about. Some people, like we said, it's a probability. It's a probability. We say there's a 25% chance for every 4 children. There's a 25% chance of having an AA when AS and AS come together. There's a 25% chance of having an AA. There's a 25% chance of having an AS. There's a 25% chance of having SA, there's a 25% chance of having SS. Now, this is not cast in stone. It's not cast in stone. So it's not as if it is just a probability. It's just a probability. So just like you rightly mentioned, it's also possible for such a person to give birth and have all the children as SS. And that's why I believe that's the reason for this kind of discourse, so that people can understand the implication of this kind of union. Yes. But there are other options for these people. For example, if someone is so much in love with an AS lady or man, and say, oh, you must get married. Yes, they can get married. They can also adopt. They can choose to adopt children. You understand? They can choose to adopt children. And there are other, apart from the other problems of hospital in and out of hospital on a regular basis, they can also there are some high falutin therapeutic interventions that can be done for them. For example, they can have a bone marrow transplant, their children. But of course, we know these bone marrow transplants and stem cell therapy. We also know the issues with them. They are expensive, and then we also talk about the ability to get experts to do them, the availability of experts to do them, and also the reactions, the transplant reactions, post-transplant reactions that follow.
Okay, adverse reactions.
Yes. Sometimes they could be tolerated, sometimes it could be so bad that the recipients may not survive it.
Wow.
So these are some of the options that they have.
All right. Let's remind our listeners of the number to call: 081 084 47518. Again, the number to call is 081 084 47518. You can send SMS or you send your messages via WhatsApp. Okay, so Dr. Olumese, what are the coping strategies for those already married? That's those with okay, before I continue with our person, let's take this call. Hello, good evening. Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. Please, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Samuel calling from Kubo.
Samuel from Kubo. Nice to have you on the show.
Yes, I have a quick question. I know one of the steps is intrusive. My question goes first. Is it possible to have this test done, and with this test we verify that the child is not a carrier of SS? However, after the child has been born, probably a year later, it is discovered that this child is now a carrier of LS, whereas the test earlier detected that this child wasn't an SS carrier. Because I've had such feedback from the medical profession, so I wanted to know, is that possible? Could be error when the test was done?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's usually, that could actually be an error, maybe an error in the procedure itself. Maybe the person who did the procedure, and also the timing of the procedure too. Usually this procedure is better done during the period when the red cells have begun to form in the baby. So if it is done earlier than that, they may not be able to. They will not be able to get the result.
Okay.
Yes, they
So
may not be able to
could-
get an
okay.
accurate result.
So
Yes.
I see an error.
I have an experience like that. Let me quickly share it. I'm O positive. So my son, the last one,
Okay.
we had to do a blood test for him before he was about maybe 6 months. I think I got a job then, and we needed the information to submit. So it turned out that the results came out that he was O positive. But when he was about 9, we went for another blood test, and his blood group was completely different from mine. So they explained that time, when I told them when we did the other test, they explained exactly what he has explained now, that he hadn't fully developed at that time.
Okay.
Okay, wait, that test was done at 6 months of
It was
age.
about 6 months.
6 months of age.
Yeah.
And you said that was what was the
I think it was O positive. I'm AS and O positive, and his results showed AS and O positive.
okay, so what is
but
it now?
I think now he's AA. It's the blood group I can't remember.
Okay, the blood group you can't remember.
Yes. but
Okay.
He's AA. I have it somewhere because
Okay.
I've had the O positive for so many years in my head.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so what are the coping strategies for those already married with incompatible genotype and blood group? What can you say to them? Probably with children who are sicklers. So how can you, because they need to be, will I say, encouraged? Okay, we have another caller on the line. Hello, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes,
My name is Uche Chukwuma calling from Abuja.
Uche Chukwuma from Abuja. Nice to have you
Yeah.
here again.
Thank you.
All right.
Please, I wanted to find out if, because I heard when we are growing up that you can overgrow it, as in when you are growing up, probably when you go of age, certain age, you will not be able to be 6 feet because you'll be out of hospital every on and then. So I want to find out if it's possible to overgrow the sickle cell. Thank you.
Yes, I think I've heard that before too. So what do you have to say, doctor?
Well, I think if I understand that in the proper context, I don't know, but I know that it's not possible for SS to probably change to AS or to change to AA, unless, of course, by a miracle.
Okay, let's quickly take this call. Hello, good evening. Good evening. Please, what's your name and where are you calling from? Your name is? Oh, please, can you speak up so that we can hear you well?
My name is Sandra. I'm calling from Twitter.
Okay, from Suleja, all right. All right, so what's your question or contribution?
I just want to ask whether it's possible if the husband is AA. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
If the husband is AA O positive, is it possible to marry a woman of AA E positive?
Very possible.
Okay.
Very possible.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good combination.
Okay, you heard it's a good combination. All right, thank you.
Please, can I maybe make a little reference to the previous question?
Yes, please.
Yes. So when you talk about outgrowing the HBSS, I think what you're talking about is probably over the years, the patient or the subject or the individual has been able to cope, has been able to understand those do's and don'ts, and then how to just stay stable. And then over the years, as a person continues to grow, he masters the art and then knows how to keep himself in good health condition. I think that's but to outgrow it, I don't think so. That's not
So it's
possible.
not that the cells change.
No,
the
it's
cells
not that the
remain.
cells, they remain, but the coping strategies get better by the years, and then you see the person is the frequency of hospitalizations and hospital
Reduces.
visits reduces.
Oh, this is a better understanding. Okay, so like we were saying, the coping strategies for those already married with incompatible genotype.
Okay, the coping strategies would include, first of all, having knowledge. Knowledge is key. Knowledge of the situation, and then knowledge of how to mitigate them.
Okay.
So having the knowledge is not enough. Applying the knowledge,
Okay.
because some people have the knowledge but they still don't apply the knowledge. And what are these things? And some of them are quite simple. For example, you have to keep the child. You have to let the child, make the child stay dehydrated. Help the child stay hydrated, not dehydrated. Help the child stay hydrated. Then usually there are some routine medications that these children take or the individuals take. For example, medications that help to boost their red blood cells, like folic acid. You keep the individual on it and ensure that he or she is regularly on those medications. Then situations that will eventually result in possible crisis, any of the crises that they go through, you avoid them. For example, you don't keep the child too cold or too hot. Then infections, you need to avoid infections. So this child must have taken his vaccines, all of the vaccines that he needs to take, including the pneumococcal vaccines. And then diet is also very key, very
Okay.
important.
Really?
Yes, diet is important.
Sorry, before you go for what are pneumococcal vaccines?
Okay, these are vaccines that they take because some of these individuals are susceptible to infections that are caused by pneumococcal organisms. So there are vaccines that they take against those organisms.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So these are some of the strategies. Then hospital visits. For example, follow-up visits. When you see your doctor and then you're giving a follow-up visit, you have to see how to meet up with. You have to ensure to meet up with those visits. So these are some of the coping strategies, but it's really not easy because sometimes it could be time consuming and also it could also be money consuming. So these are some of the strategies that they can apply.
Okay, I think that answers this question we have on WhatsApp. Good evening, my presenter, my doctor. Please, how do we manage sickle cell anemia? Ruth from Saburi Day. I think you have mentioned how we can manage sickle cell anemia. Well, how time flies.
Well, usually they may take. There are also room for transfusions too for them. So there is a stable state that every sickle cell patient or individual should maintain. Stable state of the red blood cells or of the blood level. Stable state of blood. So every time the patient or the individual is noticed to have fallen down below that stable state, there may be need for hospital visit and possible transfusion.
And the bone marrow transplant you talked about earlier too.
No.
What is the bone marrow transplant for?
Yes, that bone marrow transplant is about the definitive therapeutic intervention for them.
Okay.
Yes, because these cells are formed in the bone marrow. So the primitive cells or the cells that eventually churn out the red blood cells are formed in the bone marrow. So if we can change the bone marrow and get the person to have another bone marrow with cells that will bring up normal red blood cells, that helps them.
Okay.
I don't know if I have clear the way you said.
Okay, we are wrapping it up at this time. We have come to the end of this program.
All right.
To you, Dr. Jude Olumese, I say thank you. Thank you for investing your time to be here with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and thank you to our listeners out there for being with us once again. It was really a pleasure. Please stay with us again next week, Monday and Wednesday, for other exciting topics, same time, same station. So from Claire and I, Uche,
Goodbye.
we say bye. Bye bye.